Bonjour, bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le jeudi 4 février. Avant de passer à vos questions, je voudrais donner la parole à Balázs qui a une annonce à vous faire sur notre soutien à l'Afghanistan. Balázs.
Good afternoon. So the European Commission will make available an initial 32 million euro in humanitarian support for Afghanistan in 2021. This announcement coincides with the visit of Commissioner for Crisis Management, Janez Lenarčič, to Kabul, which has just concluded. The visit aimed to maintain EU support towards bringing peace to the country following the 2020 Afghanistan conference. This new humanitarian assistance will focus on delivering life-saving healthcare and protection services to civilians, including food and emergency shelter, and education in emergencies to those affected by conflict, disasters, and epidemics. Now, the overall figure now in terms of humanitarian aid for Afghanistan since 1994 has reached 1 billion euro. You will find more information on the topic in our press release.
Thank you very much, Balázs. That concludes our announcements for today, and we move to your questions. I pass the floor to Athanasios.
Thanks very much. Back in mid-December and the middle of January, you have concluded exploratory talks with two further vaccine producers, Valneva and Novavax. How close are we today to an APA with those two companies? Are we proceeding with the procedure for an APA or not, and how soon could we have it? Secondly, I hear from the Danish press that Denmark has moved forward with the vaccination certificate and intends to use it for business travel in the next 3 to 4 months. Is that even possible? Do we have scientific data that conflict the ones that we had before? And thirdly, it is also related, there are some ticket-selling platforms around the EU that have indicated their intention to sell tickets for concerts, for instance, only to vaccinated individuals. Is that even legally possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Athanasios. I will pass the floor to Stefan on your first question and to Christian on the other two.
Good afternoon, rather, Athanasios. On the negotiations with two companies, you know indeed that we have finalized exploratory talks with Novavax and Valneva. The negotiations are ongoing. We do not comment on the state of the negotiations, but of course, as soon as negotiations will have led to the adoption of an agreement, an advanced purchase agreement with these companies, we will definitely let you know. What is for us very important is that we continue building our diversified portfolio of different vaccines using different technologies and different platforms, as would also be the case with these two companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I pass the floor to Christian on your two other questions. Christian.
Now it works. Sorry, it was first telling me that I'm not permitted to speak. Okay. Well, look, thanks, Athanasios, for the question. As you will remember, this issue was discussed at the last European Council meetings between heads of state and government, and it was concluded that work on a standardized and interoperable form of proof of vaccination for medical purposes should continue, while the circumstances and the questions around when these certificates could be used would be determined later. So I'm afraid this is still the stage we are in, so it's very clear, and also the President has said this back then, that the common approach across the EU to monitoring vaccine effectiveness will be very important. So it's important to have such certificates, and it could also reinforce the success of vaccination programs in member states and the trust of citizens. So work is ongoing in that respect. But there are still a number of questions that are not clear about how vaccines work, in how far they protect only yourself or also other people from further transmitting the disease. So this is still where we stand. As for the question whether it would be legal, I would not want to speculate on potential plans of individual companies. But clearly, these are some of the issues that have to be taken into account in this discussion to ensure that, of course, people and consumers are not discriminated against.
Athanasios.
As a follow-up, could a member state move individually, unilaterally, with something like this? Business travel with the vaccination certificates or whatever. The common decision is well known and the reasoning is well known, but can a member state move unilaterally? Thanks.
Christian.
Look, Athanasios, that's a very general question, so I'm not entirely sure to which part you're now referring to. But I mean, you know that we have always been pushing for more coordination. We will continue to do so, especially when it comes, obviously, to travel and travel restrictions and keeping Europeans safe in these circumstances. And also once travel is possible, more again in the future probably. But at the moment we're not there in any case. And as I said, this is an ongoing discussions where several aspects need to be taken into account.
Thank you very much. Let us continue with questions related to health, please. Naomi, is your question on health-related issues?
No, it's not.
We'll come back to you later. Right, José.
Eric, how are you? Good morning.
I'm fine, how are you? Good morning.
Okay, I'm fine. Better than ever, thank you. It's José Luis Concejero, Cadena COPE Spanish radio station. I don't know, but as you probably know, in Spain, a new education law has just been approved in the last couple of weeks, I think. Some of educational community is worried about this because they say that with this law they cannot freely choose the education of their children and even the schools. Some associations claims to have contact with the European Commission because they believe that the rights of the Spanish Constitution, also the European Union Charter of Fundamental Rights, has been violated with this new law. I would like to know if the European Commission knows something about this and if it's aware of this new law. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, José. José, you're not, as far as I'm aware, a very regular customer of our midday briefing, and therefore I just would like to remind you that we try to take questions by issue. So we have started now on issues related to health and the COVID pandemic and the way that the European Union is responding to this. So I've noted your name down. We will come back to your question later on during the midday. So are there other questions on health and COVID? Please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. So I have Tommaso Galavotti. Tommaso.
Yes, good morning. Tommaso Galavotti, the Kronos Italy. Thank you for the floor. It's a question about the inspection on the plant of Henogen Novacep in Senef in Belgium, which should have been conducted by the AFMPS, which is the Belgian authority for medicines. And I asked them about that inspection. They told me that it was asked by the European Commission and they cannot tell anything about that. AstraZeneca is not responding at all. I wonder if you can, they told me, the AFMPS, to ask the Commission about the inspection. Can you tell us, please, if the inspection took place, and if it is true, as I have read in the media, but it has never been confirmed officially, that the problem mentioned by AstraZeneca was actually an insufficient reproduction of the adenovirus used to manufacture the vaccine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm afraid we're going to disappoint you. We have not changed our line compared to previous midday briefings, but I will let Stéphane repeat it.
That is correct, Tommaso. If I have to summarize our line on this, it would be no comment. The inspection of sites is the responsibility and falls under the operational responsibility of the member states. We do not comment on who has launched or not launched the inspection, on whose request or on whose not request, and we definitely also do not comment on any substance. As far as the results of any such inspection are concerned, I would advise you to contact indeed the Belgian authorities. Thank you.
Okay, we move on. I suggest you stay here, Stéphane. David.
Oui, merci. Ces vaccins, mais c'est plutôt pour Balázs, je crois, parce que c'est une question interne à l'administration. Le Parlement européen va mettre en place un centre de vaccination à partir du 22 février, si j'ai bien compris. J'avais déjà posé la question il y a quelque temps. Est-ce que la Commission a acheté des vaccins ou prévoit d'acheter des vaccins pour son personnel, et est-ce que là un plan de vaccination pour son personnel? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Balázs, effectivement. C'est le ballet des porte-paroles aujourd'hui.
Oui, bonjour David. Donc, effectivement, il y a des préparations qui sont en cours. Comme vous le savez, la Commission européenne a du personnel dans plusieurs États membres. Donc, le seul pays où on va organiser une campagne de vaccination pour notre personnel, c'est la Belgique, dans Bruxelles. En gros, on a 33 000 personnels, 21 000 desquels sont basés à Bruxelles. Et c'est justement ici, en Belgique, qu'on a la capacité, à travers notre service médical, d'organiser une telle campagne. Donc, je n'ai pas énormément de détails de partager avec vous en ce moment, mais ce qui est important, c'est que, bien évidemment, on va aligner notre campagne tout à fait avec l'approche, la stratégie des autorités hautes, donc en l'occurrence la stratégie de la Belgique. Et ce que je peux ajouter, c'est que on va commencer avec le personnel de notre service médical en Belgique qui vont recevoir leur vaccin dans les hôpitaux belges. Et puis, on va avancer à travers notre service médical en suivant l'approche de la Belgique.
Merci beaucoup. David, tu as une question de follow-up.
Oui, juste pour savoir si ces vaccins sont achetés, comment sont achetés en fait, si c'est à travers des autorités nationales ou directement chez les sociétés productrices. Merci.
Donc les vaccins vont venir, comme vous l'avez dit, des autorités nationales, mais les termes exacts, je n'ai pas de détails à vous transmettre en ce moment.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Balázs. Nous continuons sur les sujets santé. Jorge.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon. I have two questions. The first one is on last Monday, the Director General Sandra Gallina for Health, she said in the hearing in the European Parliament that it will be needed maybe to use the budget margins this year to fight against the pandemic, and there was a figure mentioned during the debate in the Parliament, 1.5 billion euros. So I would like to know if the Commission is already working on that idea, whether all the margins will be needed to be used, and also related to this, if the money will be used to finance the new task force to increase the vaccination capacity, and if you could tell us more about this. And then I have a second question on the vaccination in the export mechanism approval process from last Friday. So I don't know if I should ask this now or after.
Well, let's answer your first questions, and then we'll come to your question on exports.
Thank you very much. Indeed, this issue has been discussed in the context, I believe, of the Budgetary Committee of the European Parliament, where the idea was to make some additional funds available. This is being discussed. Director General Sandra Gellina indeed expressed her interest in having additional funds available, which would help indeed with organizing many of the, or addressing many of the challenges that we are facing, for instance, the monitoring of the vaccination and so on. So there are definitely important tasks that would have to be done and that would require additional funding. But as far as the conclusions are concerned and as to what funding will be made available or not, obviously, I cannot say anything about this as is in the hands of the budgetary authority. Thank you.
Okay, now your question on the export mechanism. Jorge.
Yes. On the export mechanism, well, basically yesterday was the first college meeting after the mistakes made last Friday with the approval process and the inclusion of Article 16. And the president told media that there were lessons learned from how things went. So I would like to know what changes will be made in order to improve this decision-making process, if that will include, for example, improving communication with some key commissioners when decisions are taken, and what other commissioners said yesterday during the discussion, because I think this issue was raised in the context of the exchange of views with the Parliament.
That's really not a question on the export mechanism, Jorge. This is a question about the decision-making process within the college, and we have explained in quite some detail the fact that the Commission has been working over the past year almost now in an extraordinary situation, which required that we adapt our working methods in order to be able to react very quickly to evolutions in the pandemic and the actions required to deal with this. And in that context, we have urgency procedures, and some 900 decisions were taken, of course, in the context of that urgency procedure. Now, it is clear that we are always looking at the way that we operate to try to improve it further, and that is something on which I'm sure the Commission will reflect. But I have nothing else to add on this at this point in time. Okay, let's continue on the health issue. I go to Odile now.
Oui, bonjour. Dans le flot d'informations, il est possible qu'il y en ait une qui m'ait échappé, et dans ce cas, je vous prie de m'excuser. Ma question. Le Royaume-Uni, qui a déjà vacciné 10 millions de gens, dans le but d'accélérer encore sa campagne de vaccination, vient de lancer un essai clinique sur 820 volontaires de plus de 50 ans dans 8 sites, dans ce qu'ils appellent le mix and match avec AstraZeneca et Pfizer. Selon les experts du Oxford Vaccine Group, il y a de bonnes raisons d'essayer ce mix and match parce que ça a donné de bons résultats dans le cadre de la campagne de Ebola. Est-ce que de tels essais sont en cours dans l'Union européenne? Et sinon, est-ce que vous seriez prêt à partager les résultats avec nos amis britanniques? Merci.
Merci. De nouveau une question pour Stéphane.
Merci beaucoup, Odile. Sur ce point, je ne peux pas me prononcer vraiment. Évidemment, nous suivons de près les campagnes de vaccination, l'utilisation des différents vaccins. Et c'est surtout en collaboration avec nos agences ECDC et l'EMA pour assurer une approche scientifique que ce monitoring se fait. Mais à ce stade-ci, je pense que je ne peux pas encore me prononcer sur cet élément-là. Merci.
Merci. Nous continuons sur les questions santé. Thomas, tu as un follow-up, Odile, pardon.
Non, non, ça va, merci.
D'accord.
J'attendrai la réponse. Merci, excusez-moi.
Merci. Tommaso, a question on health.
No, sorry, it's on Next Generation EU. I can ask it later.
Okay. Patrizia.
Hello.
Patrizia.
Thank you for the floor, Eric. I have two questions, and the first one is about the mechanism for the transparency on export of vaccines. I would like to know how many applications you have received, and so far, and if you have received, and if you have issued any denial. And the second question is about the talks with AstraZeneca. I would like to know if you've had any follow-up after the video conference of President von der Leyen in order to have news on what is going to happen next in the next future with the deliveries. Thank you.
Thank you. On your second question, I think what I can say is that there have been contacts since there was an announcement by AstraZeneca on the delivery of 9 million extra doses, and work continues. We have nothing new to report on this. On the first question, I pass the floor to Miriam.
Yes, thank you. So far we have received 3 requests. I reported already 2 of them on Tuesday, 1 to the UK and 1 to Canada, and I will add 1 to Canada from yesterday, and all of the 3 have been approved positively. So the export authorization has been granted for the 3.
Thank you. Are there other questions on health for us today? Tommaso, I know your question is on something else. Augustine, is your question on health? If so, please speak.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have 2 questions. First, when you said 9 million extra doses from AstraZeneca, can you explain, is it 9 million more doses than the reduced announcement from Zeneca, or 9 million doses in the original quantity that AstraZeneca was supposed to deliver? And COVAX announced that by the end of the month, the first doses will be delivered to more than 140 countries. I know that EU is the biggest donor in the COVAX initiative. Do you know how many of those doses will be delivered that are produced in the territory of European Union? Thank you.
So Stefan on the first and Anna on the second.
Thank you very much, Augustine. On the doses from AstraZeneca, you know that some time ago we had a number of doses agreed upon in our advanced purchase agreement. Some time ago, around 2 weeks ago, the company informed us that there would be a serious shortfall and that they would not be able to deliver the doses which had been agreed in the APA, the advanced purchase agreement. Talks have been ongoing, as you know, and the state is now that the initial idea of AstraZeneca to deliver 31 doses would be increased to 40 million doses during the first quarter. So from 31 to 40 million doses. As the President has stressed a few times, this is an important first step forward. But of course, discussions continue because it's very important for us that important numbers, quantities of doses are delivered quickly to our European citizens. Thank you.
And we go to Anna for your second question.
Hi, Agustin. Thank you so much for the question. I think that we've all seen the announcement of COVAX yesterday. I think that we can only welcome this announcement from the side of the European Union. We think it's good news that COVAX will be in a position to start delivering first early doses of vaccines to partner countries. As regards to where the production is coming from, I think that COVAX is best placed to answer this question. As you know, the first vaccines that they count on rolling out is is the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, and also the AstraZeneca, which we're talking about two. One that is licensed by the India Serum Institute, and the other one that's linked to Oxford. But as regards to where exactly, from which production sites those vaccines will be, I think that this is something for COVAX to precise. In parallel, you know that we are discussing, and discussions are advancing with our member states, and also, by the way, with the pharmaceutical companies, and also COVAX as well, in order to be able to take forward the work, to be able to set up an EU sharing vaccine mechanism. So this, of course, will be an opportunity and will allow our member states to be able to share some of the doses that have been procured in the framework of the advance purchase agreements that were concluded, as you know, by the European Commission on behalf of the member states. But work is ongoing, and I'm afraid that I don't have much more details for you at this stage on this.
Thank you, Anna. We continue on health. Louise.
Yes, thank you, Eric. It's a question on deliveries from Pfizer. The President von der Leyen, she announced early in the week that there were 75 million extra doses for the second quarter, but I understood that there might also be a possibility of a scale-up already in the first quarter. So it would be great to have a status on that. Do you expect to announce also an increase in the first quarter from Pfizer? Thanks.
Thank you. I believe the announcement actually on the second quarter had been made by Pfizer, not by the president. But I pass the floor to Stéphane.
Thank you very much, Louise. As you know, we cannot be specific as to how many deliveries will take place by each company, as you know, but we have made figures available regarding the global overview of the global numbers covering the different companies. And there I can only reiterate what I said before, is that on the basis of the information that we have from the companies, deliveries in the first quarter would amount to 100 million. And then as from the second quarter, it would increase to 300 million doses. There is a possibility that this figure of 300 million would even be higher if indeed the Johnson & Johnson vaccine receives the green light from EMA, in which case already in the second quarter, deliveries of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine would be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea, a question on health.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. I was wondering if you have any data or any reaction to the cases we have been seeing in the news, in Portugal especially, but also in other countries, about the people who are being vaccinated ahead of what is defined in national plans. And I would like to understand if you are worried about that and if you have any data or any reaction about this situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I will not make comments on the specific situation in specific countries, you understand it. However, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control is following the situation of vaccinations in the countries closely, and they have developed a platform with figures of vaccination in the different countries and monitoring the state of play of the different vaccination programs. Obviously, this is something which is followed closely by all of us with big interest, also in the context of the Health Security Committee, with representatives of all the health ministries of the member states. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will take one last question on health today. And Alain, it goes to you if it's a question on health. Ah, c'est sur l'Iran. Alors Alain, je vois que c'est sur autre chose. Donc, je clôture le chapitre santé pour aujourd'hui. And we come back to you, Naomi, with your question. Naomi, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. So my question is whether EU officials have gone back to work yet in ports in Belfast and Larne and so on, in general, the border staff in Northern Ireland. Thanks.
Thank you. I pass the floor to Ariana, who is replacing Dan.
Thanks, Eric, and hi, Naomi. What I can say is that the situation remains unchanged with respect to what we have said on Tuesday. So just to confirm, they're not back yet.
Okay, very good. Other questions on the situation in Northern Ireland? Naomi, you have a follow-up, sorry.
Yeah, if I could. So what is the situation then in regards to food checks and food imports from Britain into Northern Ireland then? Food checks are still not taking place. Does that mean that the goods can actually enter and just not be checked, or the goods cannot enter? Thank you.
I understand that the physical checks are one of the components of the checks. So there are the other types of checks that are continuing, and this issue was specifically at some checkpoints, but I will be happy to double check and eventually get back to you if I have more details to provide.
Yes, and I think it's a question you should also address to the UK authorities, since they are in charge of these checks. So we continue on issues related to Ireland, Northern Ireland. I know that quite a few people have questions on other things, but I suppose that James's question is related to this. James, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, it is related to this. Thank you for the question, Eric. I have two. First of all, I wonder if there's any reaction from the Commission after the Prime Minister said yesterday that he'd be willing to trigger Article 16 if he deemed it necessary, especially given the occurrences of the last week. And on the Northern Ireland Protocol, the British government has asked for extensions to various grace periods or for permanent solutions to be negotiated to sort of enable continued supply. I mean, does the Commission think there can be flexibilities found? Can there be extensions to these grace periods? Or is it simply a case that those companies need to alter their supply chains in order to be supplied by EU companies? Is that really the only option? Were the grace periods to give time to adapt the supply chains rather than to negotiate a replacement system? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. On the first part, we have no specific comment. We remain focused on the joint committee and on addressing the issues there. As you know, yesterday evening, also moving to the second part of the question, there has been a call between Vice President Šefčovič and Michael Gove. We have published a joint statement after that, and as you have certainly seen in the joint statement, we of course remain committed to the implementation of the protocol. In the protocol, as you know, there are conditions on grace periods, and we believe that we will continue. The most important is to continue the work constructively with the UK within the joint committee, looking for pragmatic solutions to address the issues that arise within the framework of the protocol and of EU law.
Thank you very much. James, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and thank you. I mean, I think that was clear, but just to sort of be quite specific, when you talk about those pragmatic solutions within the framework of EU law, I mean, would those pragmatic solutions, or could those pragmatic solutions include extensions to the grace period, or is the pragmatic solution altering the supply chain? Thank you.
James, I'm afraid that here I cannot really speculate. It will be discussed in the joint committee, which is the appropriate place to do so. So I would not say anything else on this, unfortunately.
Let's just remember that the grace periods were always meant to be of a temporary nature and subject to strict conditions for their application. And this was decided, of course, also in the context of our discussions with the United Kingdom at the time, and therefore it's for the Joint Committee to see what is the way forward. Thank you. We close this chapter, and I now move to Jose, who had a question on the Spanish education law. I would ask you to repeat it, if you can, slightly more shortly, because we have gotten the gist of it. It's just to make sure that Sonia can answer your question precisely. José.
Okay, thank you, Eric, and sorry for the misunderstanding before. Okay, I asked about exactly about the educational law that Spanish government approved last week, I think. Some educational community are worried about this because they say that with this new law, they cannot freely choose the educations and the school of their children. Even they speaking about that they believe that the rights of the Spanish constitutions and also the European Union Charter of Fundamental Rights are being violated. And my question, Eric, I would like to know if you have some information about that and if you are aware with this new law in Spain. Thank you very much.
Sonia.
Many thanks for your question, Jose. Education is a national competence, so it's exclusively in the power of member states to decide how national education systems are organized, and therefore the Commission does not have legal power to determine about the provision of teaching in the member states. This being said, we are following closely the situation in Spain and also the developments with the new education law, and also the intentions of the Spanish government to replace certain charter schools by schooling places in public schools. I would like also to highlight that the Commission is fully upholding the right of parents to provide or to ensure that education and training which is provided to their children is in compliance with their religious, with their also pedagogical and philosophical convictions, something which is enshrined in Article 14.3 in the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. But as I mentioned, this charter, it's imposing obligations on member states only in respect of policies where there is competence at EU level, so policies which fall in the competence of the European Union. And as I mentioned, education, it's exclusively national competence. So in this respect, the Commission does not have any ground to pronounce itself on the new legislative developments in Spain and the plans of the Spanish government.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Now, I believe that will be the only question on this issue today. Let's move to Tommaso.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the floor. Tommaso Lecaggi, News Agency. So I have a question concerning the recovery and resilience national plans. First of all, I'd like to understand how many countries did already deliver a completed draft of a comprehensive recovery national plans to use all the grants and loans offered by the Next Generation EU plan. And a second question, if I may, as far as I know, Italy already presented an entire draft plan, but now the national government may change. So my question is there enough time to deliver a brand new plan, or would you advise whoever will be the next Prime Minister to keep working to improve the national plan drafted so far by the Conte's government? Thank you.
Thank you. Question for Marta.
Indeed, thank you very much, Tommaso. And maybe just to recall a little bit the state of play, we are with the Recovery and Resilience Facility. So, as you know, there was a political agreement that was reached on this regulation, and it should enter into force very shortly, we hope, mid-February. We are now at the stage of informal dialogue with member states on their draft recovery and resilience plans. We have been, intensive dialogue now for several months, as of mid-October. What I can say is that so far 17 member states have submitted draft plans on a large number of components. As you can imagine, this is really work in progress. There's still a lot of work to do. And basically, once the regulation enters into force, member states will be able to submit their plans, their finalized plans officially. So let's say the window of submissions will be as of mid-February until the end of April as a rule.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Marta on economic affairs or on the national plans while she is with us? Please only keep your hand raised if this is the case. I see that, Tommaso, you have a follow-up.
Yes, actually again on my second question. So I'm wondering, considering that the regulation will be implemented starting mid-February and there will be time until the end of April, is there enough time for a country that did not submit any draft, or for a country that already submitted a comprehensive draft, to start over from now, drafting a brand new national plan? Thank you.
Thomas, so I think it's important to stress that we have been in contact with all member states. So this is an ongoing process. I will not speculate of whether certain member states would want to redraft their plans at this stage or not. I think this is a speculative question. We remain in contact, and we are trying to help member states to draft plans which are basically in accordance with the regulation, the criteria, which we'll be using for their assessment. That's what I can say at this stage.
Thank you. David, I know you have a question on this issue.
Yes, thank you very much. Marta, a question for you. I'm wondering if a member state present a formal plan the 1st of March, could the plan then be changed because of, problems with it and so on before the other deadline, so the end of April? And a question for you, Eric, if I may. Since yesterday the issue was debated at the college, the message. What was the main message when you say that you have to find the right balance between investment and reforms? Do you think that in general national plans need more reform than what they foreseen for now, at least as draft? Thank you.
Thank you. Marta.
On the first question, let's say that the window to provide plans is indicative. The regulation says that member states should provide their plans by the 30th of April as a rule. Of course, it will be really up to the member state to decide the timing of submissions of their national plan, and when they're finalized, it will be obviously up to them to submit them to the Commission. And as of that point, the Commission will have up to 2 months to assess the plans and submit a proposal to the Council for adoption.
Thank you. As to your second question, David, I'm not going to go into details about the discussion that took place yesterday in the college. It was an exchange of views. It was not a discussion meant to actually fix or set a line. It was a state of play of the situation, and commissioners obviously expressed their views. In general, you know what are the lines of strength of our policy in this respect. We need to have national recovery and resilience plans that, of course, on the one hand, deal with the issues that have arisen because of the crisis from an economic point of view, but doing so, they need to take into account the big priorities that the Commission has set in terms of the green and digital transition and in terms of resilience. And of course, that will imply a balance of reforms and investments that will depend on the individual situations of the country. It's very difficult to speculate at a general level. Thank you. Are there other questions for Marta on the economic situation? Jorge, is your question on the economic... Please only keep your hand raised. Alain, je sais que tu veux poser une question. On reviendra vers toi. Merci de m'aider à gérer correctement ce midday. Please only keep your hand raised if your question relates to Marta's portfolio. Jorge.
Yes, sorry, very quick follow-up. Out of these 17 member states, how many have indicated that they would like to use the loans part of the new generation envelope, and also whether they should indicate it now or is something that should be done in February when they submit the final version?
Thank you, Jorge. It's obviously up to the member states to decide when they would like to request a loan. So it's a little bit too early for the moment to say indeed which member states will finally request a loan on top of the grant. Of course, when the final plan is submitted, yes, at that stage, the member states will have to indicate whether they would like to also request a loan, because of course this has to be justified by the amount of investment and reform measures that they intend to undertake as part of their recovery and resilience plans.
Thank you. Rafaela, a question for Marta on economic governance. Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, no, sorry, I don't think it's for Marta. It's on greening the aviation sector. I don't think it's for Marta, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Marta. I pass the floor to Patrizia. Patrizia Antonini, you have the floor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have a question on the task force in the making on vaccine industrial production capacity and who will lead it, the purpose, the staff. So if you can elaborate a little bit on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrizia. So you remember that the President and Commissioners Stella Kyriakides and Thierry Breton last Sunday had a meeting with the CEOs of 6 pharmaceutical companies with whom the Commission has signed advanced purchasing agreements to discuss basically the next steps in setting up HERA and bio-defense preparedness. So following that meeting, the Commission has made some structural arrangements to strengthen the short, medium, and long-term fight against COVID and other bio-threats. And in that context, a new task force led by Commissioner Thierry Breton, in cooperation with the health and regulatory, in cooperation with Mrs. Kyriakides, in charge of health and other regulatory matters in this domain, will start work immediately. The task force has 3 main work streams. It will work to eliminate bottlenecks in current production. It will work to adjust vaccine production to virus variants, and it will work on a structural plan for faster response to biohazards at the European level. Are there other questions on this issue for us? Please only keep your hand raised if it is the case. Tommaso, is it on this? No. Okay.
No, actually it was for Marta. Actually, it was for Marta, but I raised late my hand, so I can...
Please contact her bilaterally. Okay, I go to Alain.
Oui, merci Eric. Bonjour Eric, bonjour tout le monde. J'ai une question sur l'Iran. Donc un tribunal belge a condamné ce matin à 20 ans de prison pour terrorisme un diplomate iranien. Je voulais savoir quelle analyse vous faites de cette condamnation et je voudrais aussi savoir si vous prenez les risques de représailles annoncées déjà à plusieurs reprises, notamment par le condamné lui-même, mais aussi venu de Téhéran, risque de représailles, on peut penser notamment à des prises d'otages ou à des Européens emprisonnés pour des raisons X ou Y, on l'a vu plusieurs fois dans le passé. Et je voudrais aussi savoir si vous pensez que cette condamnation peut compliquer la question d'une résolution du nucléaire iranien. Merci Peter.
Merci Alain. Nous avons en fait vu la condamnation ou le jugement qui a été prononcé par le tribunal belge impliquant un citoyen iranien. En général, ce n'est pas pour nous faire commentaire sur le jugement en cours dans un pays membre, mais je peux ajouter peut-être dans cette spécifique situation 2 éléments. Nous allons voir et analyser le jugement et aussi les implications et les actes commis par cette personne sont totalement inacceptables. C'est un fait. L'autre élément que je peux ajouter, c'est que la personne concernée se trouve déjà dans la liste européenne antiterroriste, EU Counter-Terrorism List. Donc, c'est tout que je peux dire sur ces sujets dans ce moment.
Merci, Peter. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Peter sur l'Iran? Merci. Donc, on est maintenant dans le chapitre Affaires extérieures. Donc, ne gardez votre main levée que s'il s'agit de questions sur ce sujet et sur l'Iran en particulier. Ricard, a question on Iran.
Sorry, it's on foreign affairs, but it's not Iran. Sorry.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Nima, a question on Iran?
Oui, c'est juste pour savoir, est-ce que Peter, il pense que ça peut affecter la relation, parce qu'il n'a pas répondu, est-ce que ça peut affecter la relation entre, parce que c'est la première fois dans l'histoire, en Europe, qu'on a un diplomate condamné à 20 ans de prison. Voilà, c'est juste pour savoir, est-ce que cela peut affecter les relations entre Iran et EU? Merci.
Merci. Comme je dis, nous allons voir en détail et analyser le jugement et les implications, et c'est tout que je peux dire dans ce moment.
Merci beaucoup. Je ne vois plus d'autres questions sur l'Iran. Nous restons sur les affaires extérieures et je passe la parole donc à Ricard.
Yes, hello, Peter. Not surprisingly, I will ask about Russia. I saw that you guys put out a press release about Mr. Borrell's visit, but I have a few questions about it. You say you're going to meet, that he's going to meet civil society figures. Can you point out which ones there are, perhaps? Will he also meet with oppositional people in Moscow? Will he meet or speak to Mr. Navalny? And if not, what sort of explanation did the Russian authorities give? Will he perhaps instead speak with Yulia Navalnaya or someone else from Navalny's entourage? And yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you, Ricard. All the information that is confirmed and could be shared was put into the announcement regarding the visit. And of course, the answers to your questions will be then provided. If they are not answered by the information as it stands now, they will be answered for sure after the visit. You know that this is a visit that is very complex. There are still many things in the making, and I would just invite you to follow the press conference tomorrow by the HR VP Borrell and Foreign Minister Lavrov. It will be live also on Europe by satellite at 10:15, and then we are happy also after the visit is completed, we are happy to share more details if possible about the nature of all the meetings and the content of those meetings.
Thank you. Other questions on Russia for Peter, taking into account what he has just said on the level of information we can provide. Ricard, you have a follow-up.
Yes, Peter, can you at least confirm that he has sought or asked to speak to Mr. Navalny in one way or another when he is in Moscow?
Again, there's nothing I could add to what we have been discussing already about this visit. The one thing that needs to be kept in mind is that this is a visit which takes place in a very complex environment, in a very complex circumstances. It's also a delicate diplomatic balancing act, and we are very clear in what we want to do, what we want to say, what we want to achieve. This has been communicated by the HRVP himself. And as I said, there will be space to discuss all the details that could be shared publicly after the visit. Maybe one technical note, it's not really our habit to go into such logistical details as to describe the whole process in setting up the visit. What is important is that the visit takes place, and what is very important are the messages delivered during this visit to our partners in Moscow.
Anna, a question on Russia.
Good afternoon. Indeed, I have a question on Russia, and it's more conceptual because I have heard what Peter has said just now. My question is that it's apparent that there was no reaction from Kremlin or from Foreign Affairs to the calls of the European leaders to release the supporters of Navalny and, of course, Navalny himself. I would like to underline that still at that particular moment in time, people are in jammed cells, and there's complete neglect of their right to life, because in COVID situations everywhere in the world prisons are liberated, and in Russia people in cells for 4 people, there are now 40, 30 people. So my question is, taking into consideration the unwillingness of Kremlin to react positively to the calls of the European leaders, how would Mr. Borrell adjust his program? Because calls don't work.
Thank you, Anna. Well, again, one thing to bear in mind is that we have developing situation here. HRVP goes to Moscow to deliver European messages. The visit is the visit is basically starting as we speak. In a way, there will be this main meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov tomorrow, and the agenda or the issue of human rights and the issue specifically of Mr. Navalny and all those supporting him who have been detained over the last few days in these unacceptable events will be one of the issues that will feature high on the agenda. So it is going to be raised. The Russian partners know very well what the EU and the member states are thinking about the way how they proceed. They know very well what we demand from the Russian counterparts, and they also know what actions need to be taken. So this all will be discussed, and then the visit by the High Representative will feed into the also internal discussions in the European Union, how to proceed further in our relationship with Russia, what actions need to be taken. This will be discussed, in the next Foreign Affairs Council. Towards the end of February, it will feed prominently into the discussions on EU-Russia relations at the March European Council. So this is a developing situation, ongoing discussions, and let's wait until the visit takes place. Let's wait for the content and how the messages will be delivered, and how the messages will be received, and then how the member states will be discussing all this input and deciding about what actions need to be taken. But what is clear is that the situation is unacceptable, the situation you just described about the people who have been detained, and the call is very clear and very loud from the European side that these people should be released immediately.
Thank you. Momchil, we continue on Russia for the moment. Momchil.
Good afternoon. Just a question. Will Mr. Borrell, during his visit to Moscow, to discuss other prominent high-profile cases in Russia? I mean about other people sentenced and who are considered as political prisoners in Russia.
Again, without preempting the exact content of the discussions, and there will be information provided about the content of the discussion as soon as tomorrow during that press conference, I can only repeat that the issue of human rights in general will be one of the points which HRVP intends to raise.
Christian.
Oui, bonjour Peter. Je voudrais juste 2 petites précisions sur ce que tu viens de dire. La première, tu annonces effectivement une conférence de presse. Est-ce qu'elle est M. Borrell seul ou est-ce qu'il sera avec M. Lavrov? Est-ce que c'est une conférence de presse conjointe? Et la deuxième, j'ai l'impression que j'ai posé une question idiote. Hein, d'accord. Et la deuxième, tu dis qu'il y a encore beaucoup de...
Conjoint. Mais bon,
ah ok, mais j'ai pas entendu. Désolé pour moi, c'est pas grave. La deuxième chose, c'est qu'il y a encore beaucoup de choses en négociation. Est-ce que tu pourrais être un peu plus précis? Merci.
Il y a encore beaucoup de choses en négociation. Est-ce qu'on peut être précis sur le programme, tu veux dire? C'est pas très clair pour nous. Excuse-nous, Christian.
Ce que Peter a dit, il dit qu'il y a encore beaucoup de choses qui sont en négociation. Alors, je voudrais savoir si effectivement, c'est des choses du programme, des points qui ne sont pas encore complètement bouclés. C'est ça que je voulais savoir.
Oui, on visite, c'est toujours un travail en progrès jusqu'à le dernier moment. Donc, c'est une chose logistique, c'est une chose normale qui passe, donc, et qui permet, nous, publier le détail que nous avons publié déjà et pas répondre en détail sur les questions que nous ne pouvons pas confirmer dans ce moment. Donc, oui, c'est toujours un processus en cours. Et, il n'y a pas de négociation, mais...
L'alarme du premier jeudi de chaque mois à 13h.
Donc, c'est toujours la finalisation et la spécification des derniers détails sur ces visites. Donc, comme je dis, il aura opportunité de partager les informations sur la visite, sur le contenu, sur les messages de cette visite, demain, après-demain et aussi la semaine prochaine.
Et je précise, Christian, il n'y a évidemment absolument aucune question idiote. Excuse notre mouvement d'impatience, on venait juste de répondre à la question, mais c'est vrai aussi que c'est très difficile pour vous et pour nous de rester aussi concentrés toujours sur toutes les réponses qui sont données, on le comprend parfaitement. Richard, you have another question on the same issue.
It's actually more of a technical question about the press conference tomorrow. Will we from Brussels or anywhere else in Europe be able to ask questions at that press conference, or is it only those who are physically in the room in Moscow that can ask these questions? And has the EU delegation in Moscow or the External Action Service made sure that you can actually ask questions the first thing, and that there will be questions asked by Western journalists as well?
Well, as is the case with every visit, if you are visiting a country, that country is usually in charge of hosting the press conference and making the necessary arrangements. So if you want to know all the logistical details about the press conference and how it was prepared and how it will be conducted, you either ask the Russian organizers and hosts or you watch yourself. But as far as I know, there will be space for European media or Western media also to ask questions tomorrow.
Thank you. I close now the Foreign Affairs chapter for today, and I pass the floor to Rafaela. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead, Rafaela.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Eric. I have a question. The EU Commission asked Austria to clarify its plans for a minimum air price of €40, a price which is meant to fight short-haul flights. As far as I understand, the Commission has concerns that this price might be incompatible with the internal market rules. Maybe you could elaborate a bit on that. But moreover, my question is, don't you think that this intervention might discourage member states for their kind of ambitions for greening the aviation sector? Thank you.
Thank you. First part of your question, certainly for Stéphane. And then perhaps on the second aspect, Vivian.
Thank you very much, Rafaela. The first thing I would like to stress, and you referred to it yourself as well, is that we, of course, support any measures that promote the greening of aviation and of transport in general. I draw your attention to the strategy, the smart and sustainable strategy on transport that we have adopted some time ago, in which aviation, among other things, is a very important mode of transport, and several ideas have been launched there in view of greening aviation. With regard to the Austrian case you refer to and the pricing, as always, the Commission will verify whether new measures, once they are in force, are in line with the EU common rules, and if necessary, will engage in dialogue with the Austrian authorities, and I'll have to keep it at that. Thank you.
Vivian, anything to add on the second dimension?
Thank you, Rafaela, for this question. I mean, Stefan went already into detail about what we're doing in the transport sector. In addition to that, of course, we continue to encourage the member states very much in putting forward their national plans and their policies in making sure that we implement the European Green Deal. And there I would like to especially draw your attention to the multi-annual financial framework, which has put forward the biggest investment package so far globally for green investments. So that's something with which we also want to make sure that we encourage the member states in making sure that they green their economies, in parallel to working on all the legislative packages that we are putting forward, be it from the transport area, from environment, from energy, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for us today? I think that, Rafael, you have a follow-up.
Yes, thanks again. Sorry, just to be sure, but you speak about like encouraging member states in order to green the aviation sector. But once again, the question: what do you think that this intervention, that these concerns might do in member states, in the regulatory authorities, when they try to green the aviation sector? And then you say, okay, we have to do it on the EU level, and no member state is kind of allowed to go for itself.
No, I think the point is that obviously we operate in a regulatory framework, which is the one that we have. That's the first thing. And of course, we have to make sure that the European Green Deal is implemented in that existing regulatory framework in general. And secondly, we're not going to speculate on what impact a review by the Commission of a specific national measure is going to have on other member states. The situation of each member state is obviously specific. And the way they will move forward in order to implement the European Green Deal will also be specific. Thank you. So I move to Mathieu, who had been asking for the floor for some time. Mathieu, tu as la parole. Mathieu, tu as la parole. Du moins, nous souhaitons te la donner. Ça ne semble pas marcher. Mathieu, je suis désolé, il faudra que tu nous contactes en bilatéral. Nous prendrons une dernière question aujourd'hui. David.
Oui, merci. En réalité, c'est un follow-up sur la question environnement, avion, mais qui est en même temps liée question concurrence, parce que dans son plan industriel, la nouvelle compagnie qui devrait prendre la place de Alitalia prévoit beaucoup d'aides d'État pour acheter des avions plus verts, plus écologiques. Et donc, je me demandais si, plus qu'un greenwashing, cela, c'est pas un state aid washing, dans le sens où on utilise un objectif pour faire des choses que peut-être ne sont pas si compatibles avec les aides d'État. Est-ce qu'il y a une réflexion sur ça et est-ce qu'il y a une discussion sur ça au niveau de la DG Concurrence? Merci.
Malheureusement, Ariane a dû partir et n'est plus donc avec nous en salle. Et donc, nous allons lui transmettre ta question pour qu'elle puisse répondre en bilatéral. Je ne vois plus d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui, donc je clôture le midday et nous nous reverrons demain à la même heure. Merci beaucoup.